All right. Thanks again for joining us here on the podcast. I'm just so humbled to be your host. My name is Mike Cunningham. Once again, bringing you just amazing people who happen to choose coaching as a profession. And that's really kind of precious because these smart individuals could be doing a lot of different things, and yet they choose to coach track. So help me welcome today's guest. I'm super excited to welcome the head coach of Benedictine University in the great state of Illinois, Mr. Zontavious Johnson. Coach, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just want to really quick though. I'm the head women's coach. They split the program into 3 programs. So we have a head men's coach and a cross country head coach as well. So
is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when we get to where you are now, I want to explore that. That's interesting because that sounds fairly unique having that set up like that.
Yes.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Well, man, I'm just so excited. Thanks for joining us today. We're kind of in this hot streak of amazing coaches, and I feel like hitting here in February now that we're just continuing that on, man. So I'm just super glad to have you on the podcast. You've got podcast experience yourself, which I love. That means you know what I'm going through on this side of the mic, so you know how it is.
Yes, I do. And I definitely want to commend you because I started one with me and Lamont Johnson, and we got about 20 to 25 episodes in, and I just could not keep up with the editing, the demand. So I know how time consuming it can be, especially if you want it to be good. And you've done an amazing job, Mike. I mean, amazing job, because you've done over 100 of these things.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's tough work, but it's a great product. So,
well, thank you so much for that. That means a lot. And what I love about podcasts is they're evergreen content. And what I mean by that is they never die, right? Unless you take them off, right? So I would like to plug, I know you don't do the podcast anymore, but I'm pretty sure it's still up on, you didn't take it down, right?
It's still up. I don't even know how to take it down. It's still up. I saw it. I'm on this journey of either reading a book or doing audiobooks this year.
Oh, nice.
And I was on Apple Music the other day, and it was still up. So yeah, it's still up there.
So what was the name of the podcast? Because you had some great guests, and I think the guests you had, their journeys are important. So I'd love for people to go and check out your backlog there.
It is. Oh God.
Was it Coach Z? Did you go that route?
Catching some Z's.
There it is.
Catching some Z's.
Catching some Z's. Which, if I would have advised you, terrible name. Because you don't know how many Z's are in Z's, Zontavious. So if you start typing in catching some Z and then stop when it eventually auto-fills, because
he
don't even know how many Z's were in that.
I really don't. And I'm trying to look at, so that's how you know I'm a coach, right? But that's what happens when you get bored and you get locked in the house and you got to come up with something. So Lamont was like, come up with a name. And I was like, well, we can't use Johnson & Johnson. That's kind of taken. I don't know, catching some Z's. I don't know. So,
I would have went with that. I like that. Risk being sued. I like that. That's better than a named number of Z's.
Yeah, it's really bad. I don't even know what. I don't know. I'm gonna find it.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, find it and send it to me, and we'll have it in the show notes because him and Lamont had some amazing guests, and absolutely. I think that's super, super important. In fact, I still plug my man Brandon Morton's podcast because he had 2 people on there that really legacy people that people need to hear their stories. John Smith was on Brandon's podcast, and Bev Kearney was on his podcast, and those are 2 people that I have not had, and partly because Brandon did it and did a great job, but the guest you guys had on as well, super important. So I just want to make sure, even though I know you're not active with it anymore, that we plug that because that back catalog of people that you had on there, those journeys are super important. Well, let's get to today's journey. So we're going to flip it. You've been on the other on the other side interviewing people. We get to turn the tables here and learn about your journey. Coach, where do we start? Let's go back. Where does track start for you? Were you a high school track athlete? Start with wherever it begins.
So for me, it was one of those things. So I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. Funny side note to that, me and Hassan actually raced against each other. Hassan Stamps, actually, we realized this the other day. He was up in Chicago the other day, but we'll get to that later. But so I grew up in Atlanta. I grew up in Stone Mountain, Georgia, actually. And football was my sport. Played football, played baseball growing up in the youth levels. Got to high school, got to Stone Mountain High School, and I transferred to Stone Mountain High School second quarter freshman year. And so we had just finished football season at my previous school, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna go play baseball. I'm gonna try baseball in high school. I met baseball, and I was told by the wide receiver coach at the time, if you plan on playing football for me, I need to see you at track practice. oh, well, y'all can have this. So y'all can have this baseball glove back. I'm gonna go on over here to this track and see what's going on. And that was kind of my introduction to track. And literally the first track meet I ran in was like 2 weeks later. And I was told, hey, we put you in these hurdles over here, go run the hurdles, and we put you in high jump. I don't know how to do any of them.
First of all, hold on. Let's pause right there for a second, because I thought you were going to tell the horror story of the football coach saying, if you want to play football here, because Stone Mountain football is no joke. That's an amazing area for high school football, and that high school is really, really good. I grew up just across the way in Alabama, so I know Georgia.
But you're familiar really with Southern football, and but for us, football and track goes hand in hand in Georgia. It was because for us, spring football started before track season. So you would do spring football and then track season would start. So there's no conflict in Georgia.
We did not have that attitude where I grew up for football. It was you come to spring football and your track is going to get in the way. Sorry, it's not, because you're going to do spring football. So I love that coach was like, oh no, you playing football, you were running track.
He was the wide receiver coach. He was the track coach. He was like, well, all of my guys run track. So either you're going to run or you're going to find a new school. And since I just got there, I don't think finding a new school was an option. So I went to track.
The answer was defined already.
It was not. It's funny because when I get to how I started coaching track, it started the same way.
Okay. Well, let's learn. He threw you in the hurdles. Now
it's me in the 110 hurdles.
I say it's one thing to throw somebody in like a quarter or something like this, but the hurdles, no practice before.
No, I got to the meet. My very first meet, I got to the meet, and it was you're running the 110 hurdles. What? I don't know how to do this. And by the way, you're high jumping and long jumping. I was like, what do you mean? He said, I've seen you jump 1,000,000 times. You can jump, you'll be fine. And I'm just like, okay. But I go out and I run, whatever. I run like 15 low. And it was like, hey, you can do this. I was like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm doing. But then the odd part about it was we never went back and practiced it. We never really practiced hurdles. It was always, let's go run some 300s, let's go run some 200s, and then get to the meet, you're gonna run hurdles again. So it's like, oh God. So that's how my freshman year started. I just ran hurdles, just at the meet, no practice, just running hurdles.
Now what I love about stories like this is because we're interviewing you 20, 30 years after the fact. So we have perspective, right? We have hindsight. Oh, yeah. When you look back at it now, I mean, that's pretty amazing to not practice the hurdles at all and run 15 low. If you'd have said 16 low or even crashed out, I'd been like, well, yeah, of course you didn't practice at all. But for your inaugural hurdles, 15 low, that's pretty good, my friend. What do you think it was now that you look back on it? Were you just athletic? Were you just able to watch other people do it and mimic it?
So I was the little kid growing up that would do backflips and jump off of pretty much anything. And I mean anything. School buses, side of houses, didn't matter. I was that, I can do that. And so when I got the track, he was like, I saw you the other day jump over that fence like in 2 steps. Do the same thing. And so I did the same thing. And, just looking back at it now from a coaching side, I was never taught, how many steps to the first hurdle, never taught, where to take off from it. It just, for me, it came natural. It was like I would run and jump over fences the same way. Wow. And so it was like, I just kept doing that and I got faster. And I got faster, I got taller, and it just kept coming natural. And then the more I would do it, the more I would see people around me do it. I ran against, freshman year, I was, this was after Angelo Taylor and Terrence Trammell, but then sophomore, junior, senior year, I had to deal with Angelo Taylor's younger brother, Corey Taylor.
Corey, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then my senior year, I had to deal with Josh Walker. Mm. And then later I found out it was Hassan Stamps as well. So, I pretty much learned how to hurdle by getting my butt whooped by some of those guys until I was able to go back home and start doing it on myself and then got better. But for me, track was one of those things where I'm doing this because I got to go play football, because I want to go play football, right? But I ended up loving track, so it worked out.
So I was going to ask, because I'm a huge hurdle fan. Did you, like, after that first race, did you immediately fall in love? But you maybe kind of answer that because you're like, yeah, it was a ends to a means so I could play football.
Well, I didn't fall in love with it. I wanted to run the 100. but I wasn't fast enough. Like we had some really fast guys on the team, and I wanted to run the 100 because that's where everybody was at. But it worked out to where I was like the only person on the team that competed every track meet, because I did 3 events that nobody on the team wanted to do. I did the hurdles, I did the high jump, and I did the long jump. And long jump and high jump, we didn't have a coach for. So it was like, hey, figure it out. I was one of the high jumpers that started in the middle and ran that half circle and jumped. Yes, I ran forever and then jumped, but it worked out. I ended up jumping around 6'5", 6'6" in high school. And was a 21-foot long jumper without really knowing what I was doing.
Right.
But once again, for me, it was a hobby at first until I got senior year. I got kind of serious. I ended up running sub 14 and had opportunities to do both in college. And then I get to senior year of high school. Last play of 2-a-day football camp, I break my right ankle. To this day, I have a plate in my right ankle with 8 screws in it that has had surgery on it 3 times since. And so I missed all of senior year football. I got my doctor to clear me for senior night. And he told me, I'll see you back here on Monday. Yeah, that was in 1999. That was October 1999. I haven't seen him since.
Wow.
And so I went on and played senior night in the 2 playoff games, which was, in hindsight, really horrible idea. Didn't play basketball season my senior year, went out the track and got to the state meet with no issues in the 110 hurdles. We're in the state finals, gun goes off. I leave the block, I get to the first hurdle, and my ankle locks up on me as I leave the ground. I crashed or hurdle 1.
Sure.
And so at that time, you got to finish the race to get your medal. So I basically just walked over each hurdle until I got to the finish line and finished. And I thought that was going to be the end of track for me. I was like, I'm done with it. I'm going to stick to football. Let's get to football now. Ended up going to, because of getting injured in the season, ended up at that time, there's no Twitter, there's no social media to kind of pub yourself with colleges. So I ended up going to Middle Georgia Junior College, played football there, and me and a bunch of the guys there ran in a bunch of unattached meets because we didn't have a track team, but we had a track. And one of the guys will say, my high school coach said, hey, we can just go as unattached. So we went to about 5 or 6 unattached track meets. I ran the hurdles there. I went 1380 over the 42s.
Okay, so hold on, let's pause here because I was going to ask him, like, so how was it over the 42s? But you just answered that. But before we get
6'2", so it didn't really bother me.
Yeah, let me tell you what, there are plenty of 6'2" people who ain't running 1380 in the 60 hurdles, my friend. Let's not downplay what 1380 is. But first, before we continue on the athleticism, when you were going to college, what were you thinking for academics and for a career? Was coaching at all in your mind, or were you on some other path?
So first of all, my background, my mom's a minister, my dad's a pastor. So
oh wow,
my entire life growing up, I spent in the church, and so I've always told, you're gonna be leader of young people, always told. And so, but in the church realm, it was, you're gonna be a youth pastor. I fought that thing tooth and nail to this day. No, that's not what I want to do. But coaching I'm one of the oldest males in my family, and I have tons of cousins and nieces and nephews. And so I've always been around younger kids. They've always gravitated towards me. So when I decided to go into coaching, it came natural, but it was not in my mind. My mindset was, I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna play football for 4 years, and then I'm gonna go play professional football. That was the goal. That was plan A, that was plan B. That was probably plan C through Z, honestly.
Yeah.
And so then I got to junior college, I played ball, was pretty good there, but not knowing the rules, which is why as a high school coach, I was such a stickler for making sure my athletes knew the rules. Not knowing the rules and not knowing that your clock started once you started a full-time student. Looked up, I only had 2 years left to play football if I went to Division I. Right. Had an opportunity to go to the University of Kentucky to play football and possibly run track. That was on the table, but it was one of those things where I would have only had 1 year or maybe 2 years left for football. So it's like, nah. Albany State, which is a Division II HBCU down in Albany, Georgia, which to this day I think was the best decision I ever made. I was able to go there because I had 3 seasons to play. Went there and we had tremendous success on the football field. Track wasn't an option because it was one of those things where I was told, Yes, you can go run track, but you got to do spring football too. I don't know if you've been to Albany, Georgia. You're from Alabama, so you're familiar with the heat. We're talking 115 in the summertime, talking about doing a track practice, then a football practice, or vice versa. No, thank you. I'm gonna catch these footballs. And so, I did that, played football, did my 3 years there, had an opportunity to make some tryouts to different little leagues and travel and play football a little bit, which is what kind of led me to Illinois. I ended up moving here. I signed with the Chicago Rush and ended up moving here. The week before I moved here, I had got rid of my place in Atlanta. The week before I moved here, I was told that the league had shut down. So I called my agent like, sir, I need a team. I don't have a place to stay. I don't have any money coming in. So he found me a team, the Rockford Raptors down in Rockford, Illinois. Yeah. Anybody that, if you think in Rockford, yes, it's the same Rockford as a league of their own in the Rockford Peaches. Had no clue what that was until I got to Rockford. People kept telling me, oh, that's what the Rockford Peaches were. What is that? Ooh. A league of their own? Okay, let me go watch this. And so, lady softball movie, so I didn't know that, but I spent a year in hotels in Rockford, Illinois, about 7 months in Rockford, Illinois, eating Hooters, because that's what they fed us, and playing arena football. And then I eventually moved up to Chicago with my wife, who's now my wife. We've been married for 12 years now. And that's when the journey for me with track started. I got up to Chicago. I was coaching high school football. Okay. And then the coach I was coaching under got a new job at North Lawndale Prep. So I followed him over there to coach football. I was walking through the building. They hired me in the building. So I was walking through the building. The principal at the time, who's now one of my great friends and one of my mentors, LaKel Pratt, she saw me in the building. She was like, I heard you talking to the guys about you used to run track. And I was like, yeah. She was like, that's interesting. My track coach, who was Craig Collins, who you've had on the podcast, had just left. She was like, you're my new track coach. I was like, what do you mean? I've never, she said, you're my new track coach. I was like, but I coach in football. She said, but you're my new track coach. I'm going to go tell Chris Kelly, who was our CEO at the time, that we just hired you as a new track coach. So I was like, okay, so what do I do? And so, it's one of those things, like, I went into this thing the first year, I've continuously apologized for that first group of kids I've had, because that first year was not the best, because I never experienced coaching track and field in the Midwest, where it was indoors in a hallway, right? So I came into the mentality of coaching the same way that I was coached in high school, which, as I've gotten more into coaching education and learned more and been around it more, learned that it was God-awful way of coaching. And so that first group, that first year was just bad. Like we had some kids make it down to state, but it was just bad. They were just talented kids. And I tell them that all the time. And then after that, it was, okay, if I'm going to do this for real, let's go into this thing the same way I attack football coaching. And so the first thing I did was I sought out who I consider the Mount Rushmore of coaches here in Illinois on the high school level. I sought out Derek Calhoun. I called him, I emailed him. It took him like a month to get back to me. I was like, just how do you do what you do at Morgan Park? I'm on the west side of Chicago. How do you do that? And what can I do here? He said, I'll give you 2 pieces of advice and that's it. He said, 1, figure out what you want to be and be that. And 2, build your team around the quarter milers. And I took the build your team around the quarter milers to heart and ran with it. And every team I've ever coached has been built around the quarter milers, and they've been pretty good. So
it's apparent that you were on the path to be a coach from an early onset. Yep. So I love that you reached out, the first year is always tough, right? Like we always coach, we fall back to coaching how we were coached. In fact, yep. I just had a conversation with someone this past weekend about that and how I believe the real, I don't want to call it renaissance, but we're going to have in about 10 to 20 years from now, I think track and field is going to we're going to make what is happening today dwarf in 10 to 20 years. And we're doing some amazing things in track and field, right? You just saw the Olympics, and NCAAs are amazing every year. But because of what coaching education has been for the past 10 years and this next 10 years, that means more kids are being coached by better coaches. So when they fall back and coach how their coaches coached, it will be at a much higher level than hey,
absolutely,
I put you in the hurdles this meet. So
absolutely.
So I love that you reached out to Derek Calhoun. You had Craig Collins. You followed him. That's awesome. Two great Gill podcast alums there. What else were you doing when you? I love that you said you apologized to your first guys because.
Oh yeah, I apologize to them.
I love that humility. So what were you doing besides reaching out to some of those guys for your own coaching education?
Well, the first year I reached out to Derek Calhoun. I reached out to Nino Fenoy of East St. Louis. Matter of fact, I went down to East St. Louis. I'm like, I just want to watch y'all practice.
Yeah.
And then I reached out to someone who's become a good friend too, Barbara Montgomery, who's the head coach of Springfield Southeast. To me, those are the Mount Rushmore of coaches in the state of Illinois. I don't care what anybody says. Their record speaks for itself. And so, you know, I reached out to them and they all gave me different tidbits on, you know, how to attack this thing. And then I learned about USA Track and Field Level 1. So then I took in 2011, I went home to Atlanta and they had a Level 1 school there. So I did the Level 1 school in Atlanta. And so that kind of started piquing my interest. And then I did the USTFCCCA. I did their Level 1. And so from there, I just started learning. I started paying for myself to go to the convention. And so I started going to the USFCCA convention. I've been going to that thing since 2012. Most of those years have been out of my own pocket. So my wife is looking at me like, this is kind of expensive. I was like, but I gotta go. And so, you know, I started networking with college coaches and started networking with just other high school coaches and just learning as much as I could, right? And then trying to figure out what can I use in this 50-meter hallway? Because we legitimately had a 50-meter hallway. So North Lawndale Prep shares a building with Collins High School. The building split in half. We have a 50-meter hallway that we could use. Well, actually, it's 46 meters because there's a door and a frame at the end. So we got 46 meters we can use. On a good day, when Collins wasn't using the other side, we could open up both of the doors and we could stretch out to the gym and get about 120 meters in.
Oh, wow.
But the thing about that 120 meters, it's a door frame, a door frame, a door frame. And so if you don't have elbows in, it doesn't feel well.
You don't have elbows.
Yeah, you don't have elbows. So we've had a couple of people that have had a few bumps and bruises with their elbows on those things. But it's so then you start just looking at and trying to figure out how can I implement what I'm learning through coaching education and from other coaches. How can I put that into play in this 40-meter hallway, right? Because we still got to develop things. And I tell people all the time, when I was at North Lawndale Prep, the success wasn't rated on how many titles and championships that we can win. The success was rated on how many young people can we get out of the west side of Chicago and get off to school. And in 8 years, I think that number was like 46 or 47. And so I tell people all the time when they ask me about my story, west side of Chicago Chicago itself is a high school basketball town. So when I got to North Lawndale Prep, it was a basketball school. Like they've had state titles on the men's side. They've got, great school. Lewis Stope is an awesome coach over there. So they had a great success. And so when I got there, I tell people all the time, when I got there, we went from being west side good to Chicago good, to state good, to finally having national caliber athletes there. And we did all of that on a 50-meter hallway for the most part. We had young ladies that won 52.9, 53.0 in that hallway. We had guys run 48.9 and 49s out of that hallway. We had Amani Payton, who was one of the great, he's actually the Chicago Public League record holder in the 300 and hurdles and the 110 hurdles out of that hallway. And so we had a string of about 4 or 5 years where we brought all state All-Americans or all-state runners back every year. Whether it was an individual or a relay every year for a run of 5 or 6 years. And then, so, that got there, that was all about getting kids, changing their mindset. So that became a place where I had to change mindsets and show kids it was possible to get outside of those 8-9 blocks of the west side of Chicago.
So I'm curious, you talk about mindset. I'm curious about your mindset. When you're talking to a Derek and Springfield Southeast and ESL 3, you're right, Giants, those guys, Come on, man. They'll rival anybody out there. When you're going and observing practice and talking with them, it's more of a free flow exchange, right? So maybe they're doing a workout for the day. You get to ask questions. Well, hey, why did you do this? What would you do if this happened, right? So it's more of a back and forth. As you were going through the coaching education, which is more of an input only system, right? The teachers up there teaching and you're writing notes and all that kind of stuff. What was your mindset? Because you only have what you did in the past as a comparison. So when they were talking about, hey, if you're not doing fly work for speed, you're not really doing speed and you have to do acceleration first. Were there any aha moments or was there any pushback in your head where you just like, you know what, that's not passing my smell test because I just jumped in the hurdles and I did well. So I don't think you need to do these drills or whatnot. What was your mindset going through that coaching education program?
Man, to be honest, my mindset going through all of that was like, what the hell y'all talking about? Like, I don't know what any of this is. Like this is great to have, but like now looking back, because I've learned more, I understand it. But when I took level 1, I left level 1 still not knowing what I needed to do. Like I had the information, but I didn't know how to implement it. So that's when I was like, okay, cool. Now I need to start asking questions, right? Because level 1, I did the classes. I also went, it was the same time as my first son. It was his birthday weekend, so we was there with my family. So I was there, but I wasn't there, right? But out of that, I learned about the convention. And so the convention, the level 1 sparked my interest. The convention is where I got to sit around coaches and just listen to them talk about implementation of this stuff and how to do it and why to do it. And so once I got that part, I jumped back into coaching education with a different eyesight and a different mindset of, okay, now this makes sense. Now this is why we do speed early, or this is why we do short to long. This is why we do different things. And for me, I still had to make it fit in that hallway at North London.
Right. I love how you put that, you know, even after level 1, so you got the ideas and the reasoning, but you didn't know how to implement it. I kind of thought about it like in a cookbook sense. It's like, oh, you got the ingredients, but you still didn't know how to cook. And more specifically, your kitchen, your 50 meters in the hallway is different than the guy who has a full indoor track or doesn't have to do indoor track at all because he or she's in Florida or Texas. And so they only do outdoor. Different. Now you get the ingredients. How do I cook in my kitchen?
And so for me, it came out to be one of those things where that worked well, but at North Londale, I didn't need to use a lot of that because all I did at North Londale was I put the chip on all of their shoulders about every time we would go to a meet, they would get upset because we get to a place and these schools got these great 200-meter tracks and they got the uniforms and things. So I use we're just going to put a chip on their shoulder and just make them want to do better, like just show that they can do better, right? And so my guys team was tremendous. They were all athletes. They all had a cocky attitude. And they all wanted to beat everybody that we ran against. So anything we did with them worked, right? I was in South Carolina a couple of weeks ago at the South Carolina clinic, and Coach Gilbert, Coach Carroll said, she quoted a quote from one of her mentors, and it was she quoted a quote from Tony Wells, and it was any fool can coach another fool for 2 years. What do you do in that year 3? Because if a kid's never done anything and they just do it repeatedly, they're going to get better. What happens when that stops working? And that's where I was at North London. First 2 years, we were getting better, but it was like, okay, not working. So that's when I started reaching out to people that I consider my mentor now, Kareem Jackson at Wisconsin. Because he's from, Chicago. He's recruited my kids, and started talking to him about training theory and how to implement stuff. He was really instrumental in getting me like on the path to understanding how to put my workouts together. And so once I started doing that and then going to the clinic, listening to coaches and just talking to people, because I'm from Georgia, I'm from the South, I speak to everybody. It's a habit. It's just how I was born. I don't, you can tell me no. I came from a football world where in the football world, coaches didn't really talk like that. They just either wouldn't respond to you or they wouldn't give you anything. Track and field is so different, man. Coaches will give you everything under the sun because we also understand if you don't understand the why, it's not going to work for you. And so that's when I learned that. I started asking why a lot.
Are you at this point, So how many years are you at North?
So I spent 8 years at North Lawndale.
So are you now track coach, Johnson, or are you still coaching football?
No, at that point, my last 4 years at North Lawndale, I was the head football coach as well. Okay. And so we did, and by that time I had started the youth club as well. So I was literally coaching. I heard somebody else say this. I was literally coaching 13 months out of the year. I'm literally going. It feels like that. I was going June to October with football, October to August with track, because we would go. We start indoor club, run high school season, run outdoor club, all the way to the Junior Olympics, and then back to football season. So I did that for 4 years. And then I stepped away. I got my mentor, LaKel Pratt, her husband ended up working football over at Homewood Flossmoor High School. She calls me one day out the blue and said, "Hey, Homewood Flossmoor High School is looking for a girls coach. Would you be interested?" I was like, I like North Lawndale. I don't know where Homewood Flossmoor was at. She was like, "Don't worry, I've already told the AD that you'll be interested. He'll be giving you a call." And so the AD called me like 30 minutes later, brought me in for an interview, and 2 days later I had the job, and we packed up the family and moved the family from the city of Chicago out to the south suburbs, which for me was a great move. But that move came with a lot of expectation, and it came with a different set of challenges.
Before you move out to HF, when you were that football coach all the way through and you're the head football coach, did you mimic your high school coach? Did all your guys and gals, I guess guys in football, but did you tell them, hey, you have to run track?
Well, I did. I got a lot of pushback from some of the parents because football and track doesn't go hand in hand in Chicago. They think they got to go to all of the football combines and all these things to make teams and get themselves recruited. But our football slogan my last 2 years was "Welcome to our track meet." We ran a spread offense, and we would sometimes put 4 and 5 wide receivers on the field, and we would spread you out from bottom of the number to bottom of the number. Now, at this time, I had kids that I had 10 5s and 10 6s and 10 4s and 21 low track kids playing football. And so,
welcome to our track meet.
Welcome to our track meet. We were a 80% passing team that spread you out, and we won a lot. We won more than we lost. We made the state playoffs 2 years in a row. Wow. We actually won a state playoff game from a little bitty old tiny school on the west side of Chicago with 150, 190 kids. And because it was a charter school, we got bumped up to, we should have probably been a 2A or a 3A school. We played 5A and 6A football. So we was in the 5A state playoffs my first year there. Wow. And then my second year there, we were in the 6A playoffs and won a first round game. And so it's, we got through the city playoffs as well. But for me, football was really simple at this point. It was, we're going to spread you out. I have more speed than you. If you send more people than you're going to cover, you're going to pay for it, because we're just going to dump it off in the flats, and we're going to play in space. And that's what we did a lot. Like we had guys that were tremendously fast.
So I'm going to save all your football talk for a different football podcast. As much as I love football,
absolutely,
and ran the spread offense when I was in high school, but I was an offensive lineman, so my X's and O's are a little bit different. But when you go to Homewood Flossmoor, so you become the girls head track coach. Did you?
I become the girls head track coach only.
No football coaching.
So there's the thing. I hadn't planned on. I was done with football. Coach Buzz, who's the head coach at Homewood Flossmoor High School, saw me in the hallway one day, walking through the building. He was like, "I heard you was a football coach." I was like, "Yes, sir. I need a new freshman coach." "No, I don't want to coach football. I don't want to coach football." And he was like, "Well, we need a new freshman coach." So then I ended up being the freshman defensive coordinator for 2 seasons at Homewood Flossmoor High School. So
again, another mindset question. That seems like a pretty big deal for a football coach who is also a track coach. And it kind of maybe sounds like you were, call it 50-50. You weren't 80% a football coach. Like it was kind of 50-50.
I was at this point in time when I got to HF, I was probably 70-30 track football.
Well, no, maybe 100-0, because you said you decided you were not coaching football. I know they brought you back in. Football. That feels like that was a big decision.
I was not. Well, it was part, and I can be honest about this. Part of that decision to coach football was money. When I left North Lawndale Prep to go to Homewood Flossmoor High School, they didn't have a teaching position in the building, and so I took a TA position. So I went from 52,000 to 17,000. And with the wife and 4 kids moving to the south suburbs, income was needed. So they pay pretty well, coaches in the south suburbs. So I took the coaching job, but it was one of those things where I was like, I really don't want to do this. But it's freshman football, so it's not very difficult. I don't care what anybody says; it's just not difficult. So we had success. But my main goal was track, but that was Homework Flossmore brought a different challenge. Now it was like, okay, you're taking over a program that has always been talented, has always had talented kids, but could never get over the state hump. Like they've always gotten state, but they've never brought a state trophy back, right? And so in 3 seasons, we went second, and won a state title.
So what did you bring differently than what they had done in the past?
I think I just brought a different demand. Like I demanded you come to practice. I demanded that we do every rep. I demanded that you hit your times. I tell people all the time, I'm a very hard coach to work for because I feel I'm gonna give you everything I have. I'm gonna give you everything that I got. I'm expecting you to give me the same thing. And I think we just created competition. We had so many girls that were fast. And then we also did summer track together. So the bulk of our team ran with us together in the summertime. So we all got better together. And just me knowing more about track and then really being able to use a lot of stuff that I learned through my process at North Lawndale. But now I have a 200-meter indoor track to practice zone. I got a wonderful outdoor track to practice on. So now I can actually break out some of the workouts and some of the terminology and different things to use it because I have the space to use it now.
You did 8 years in a hallway, and then you get the mother load. Not only do you have an outdoor facility, but you have an indoor facility.
Indoor, yes.
How much did you struggle? Because you've got a system now in place after 8 years. How much did you struggle now having more resources available to you to changing up your workouts to fit the facility?
I'll say the first month or two, I was still coaching as if I had just a straightaway, right? And then it was like I was talking to Kareem. Kareem was like, at this point now I've had a chance to meet more coaches because I've had a lot of kids recruited. So now I have a Rolodex of coaches I can just call. I was talking to Kareem. He came up one weekend he came up because at that time he had Gabby DeRosa, one of my young ladies. So he was in town for Christmas break. So he came by and he saw what we was doing. He was like, Coach, you got all of this space. What are you doing? I was like, this is what I know. He was like, well, no, you know more than this. Open up those thousands of notebooks that you have. Because I'm still old school. I still write stuff down. All my workouts are still in notebooks. Like I have it's bad. It's just know it's bad. So he was like, use what you have now. And so then that was like a aha moment. And so we went back they came back from Christmas break and now it was like, okay, now we're doing the 250s and now we're doing the 300s and the broken 400s. And we're no longer doing the 400 the hard way. We're no longer doing 10 times 40 meters because that's all the space we got. But yeah, so it took until Coach Kareem was like, use this track. And I was like, okay.
What a great example of outside positive influences, right? Sometimes
absolutely.
Sometimes we can get in our own box and it's like, yeah, but my system works.
Yeah.
But it's great to have those people that we can trust that come from the outside and go, I mean, something pretty simple, right? He didn't rewrite the 10 commandments here. He's like, hey, you got a lot of room here. Use what you got. Like you have more up here in your head. Use what you got so you can actually use it. And you're like, oh yeah, I guess that's right. I do.
Because I was still doing my 150s by doing 50, 50, 50. Just because I had gotten so used to doing it. Like the year Brianna DeRosa ran 53.0, she did that by she would do sometimes 4 and 5 sets of 400 the hard way. Like that was her practice. That was her Tuesdays. And then we'd dump her in these cold tubs that we went and bought the Rubbermaid trash cans. We would dump her in those on Wednesday. And then we'd go back to work on Thursday. So when I got the HF, I'm doing that. And the kids are running well, but it's like, this is such a hard way to do it. And Kareem was like, why don't you just do the broken 400s? Now you have the space. And I sat back and I was like, he's right.
He's a genius.
He's a genius. Why didn't I think of this? Okay, no more making you run down and back on a straightaway. We have space now. So it's but I've evolved that way, man. I've been so blessed to have coaches that I could call and talk to, and they could just tell me the honest truth because they know I'm going to listen. And so it's been a blessing.
You made a lot of headway in the former high school, and now at HF you have success at the state level. Was there anything at this point in your head, because spoiler alert, you're a college coach now, was there anything at this point that you were thinking like, I really want to coach college, or are you still 100% I love coaching high school, I'm going to continue this route?
I have been trying to get into college coaching since 2015.
Why?
Because I felt that I wanted to know if what I was doing at the high school level could work at the college level. That was my biggest thing. It was like, okay, at this time, by 2015, I probably had one of the larger youth clubs in the city. By that time, we had about 95 high school athletes from across CPS running for us in the summertime. And so every summer, we're taking 30, 40 kids from the city of Chicago to the Junior Olympics. And we're bringing back All-Americans, and kids are getting scholarships. And so I wanted to know if I could do it, right? But once again, having a family, having a wife that worked in the city of Chicago and didn't really want to leave at the time, just nothing really came to fruition that made sense financially. And so we stuck with it. And then when I got to HF, after we won a state title, my wife, Kareem Jackson, Lamont Johnson, they all were like, it's time. It's time. This job's open. It's time. And so Jeff Fellers, who's the head coach at Aurora University, was looking for a sprint coach in 2018. So a friend of mine, Pierre, who's a high school coach here at St. Rita, he was like, hey, I know Jeff. I ran with Jeff in college. Let me give him a call and see if he's looking for a coach. So he called him, told me to apply. Went in for the interview. He brought me in for his to coach his sprinters and the hurdlers, coach his long sprinters and the men and women hurdlers. And then, it worked out because of the time of practice. I was able to stay at the middle school I was working for. And so I didn't have to figure out a salary because it was a stipend position. And so, it was, my wife was, okay, listen, we can figure this out. Let's make it work. If you're going to coach college, we know we got to start somewhere. So let's figure it out. Got the first semester, got the indoor season in, completely got done with indoor, getting ready for nationals. Then COVID hits and they cancel. And then, so I'm at that point, okay, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going back to Aurora next fall. We'll get it going. The Benedictine job opened up. And I saw it posted as the Benedictine women head coaching job. And so now I'm looking and I saw the men's job. And I was like, I really like coaching women. So I think I'm going to apply for the women's job. And so I applied for the women's job. And I had a goal in my head that I set back in like 2012, 2013, that if I was going to coach college track, I wanted to coach college track by the time I turned 40. I wanted to be in college track by the time I turned 40. My birthday is October 23rd. I got the Benedictine head coaching job October 21st. And so I got that job. I headed off to Vegas for my birthday and as a college head coach, and came back, and we started the season. Got the job in October, couldn't start training until January because of COVID. We had six young ladies on the team. And so then it goes back to the 2 years before. I had a 4x4 team that ran 346. And now I'm at a school where I don't have 4 young ladies that can run 430. So now my whole mindset has to shift again to, how do I coach this? What do I do? How can I make an impact here? How can we grow this program? All those thoughts went through my head as soon as that first day of practice. It was like, okay, here we go. We're back to pre-North Lawndale days. How do I fix this? And so, we just went to work, and those young ladies got better over that first year. And now this year we have 24 in the program. I learned that I can recruit a little bit. So, it's been a good journey so far, and we're in year 2 right now. So,
because of all the things that are involved being a head, not even a head, but a college coach. And what I mean by that is not just coaching, right? We wish sometimes it was just being on the track and coaching, but there's recruiting, there's scheduling, there's budgeting, alumni relations, work within the athletic department amongst other coaches and staff. There's so much more. Because of all of that, I think there are a lot more high school coaches that should and could be considered for college positions. What did you find as someone who did so far in their career, a bulk of their coaching on the high school level? What have you found the most difficult transitioning to a college coach?
The most difficult part for me, I would probably say the politics of it sometimes. I don't know how to do politics. But it's, for me, everything else is coaching. Like I spent the last 19 years making my own schedule, booking my own travel, doing my own uniform orders and budgets. So that stuff was easy for me at the college level. It was the things with the academic support people, the financial aid office, the business office, stuff like that, that was a foreign thing to me, because I knew it from the outside, but being on the inside of it and not understanding everything they have to do and everything that needs to be done. Because getting a head coaching job in the middle of a pandemic, when pretty much everybody is pretty much working from home, you don't learn a lot of those things, and you're not taught those things because it's not a priority almost, because it's people not thinking about it because they're not in the office. And so for me and for Gabe Revere, who's the men's coach, it was learning a lot of stuff on the fly. And so I think that's been the biggest challenge. Like, this is year 2, but we're still learning things on the fly. Just because we still haven't really been in the building full time yet. Like, we're back remote right now until February. So it's that was the biggest challenge for me. It's just learning how to be a college coach working in the office. Because I'm not an office person. Like, and then with Division III not being able to really start training until October, sitting in the office trying to find stuff to do, it's not the funnest thing to do. I just want to coach, but being a college coach is got to do the work part too, I guess.
Growing up through your coaching career, you gave a lot of examples of reaching out to Derek Calhoun and Kareem Jacksons. Who have you reached out? How have you now switched that? That's a really great mindset. How do you switch that mindset to, okay, I don't necessarily need to reach out to Coach so-and-so to talk about X's and O's, but I need help in this transitioning to becoming a head coach and a college coach. Has there been people that you've reached out that have really helped you on that format of your
Lamont Johnson? That's my guy. We got close. He's recruited several of my kids in high school, and so him and I have gotten close, but I call him and I just get yelled at. And because he talks loud, and so he likes to raise it.
He still holds the record for the longest Gill Connections podcast. So I know it very well.
I believe it. We went to South Carolina to the convention to the coaching clinic together, and so I stayed in North Carolina. I stayed in Charlotte, so we drove from Charlotte to South Carolina. On day 2, he pretty much yelled at me from the time we left to the time we got back to Charlotte. So it was 2 hours straight of him nonstop. So yes, but no, he's been a great help with
awesome.
Just telling me, man, Jay, just listen, just do this. Okay, I'm gonna do this. Man, you're gonna miss this. Okay, I got you. And so it's been, if I need to vent, that's what I call, because I know he's gonna make me shut up and listen. Because he'll just over talk me. And so
that's how I know the real Mont right there. That's like, okay, you are friends with him. Okay,
he'll just over talk me until I listen. So but it's good because I need it, because I'll get into my moods where I don't want to listen because I don't want to really hear it. I just want stuff to be done sometimes. And so he's been like my number one person I call when I have issues or when I don't understand why something is going on, because he's been through it. And so, but that's the main person. Then of course, Kareem. Like, those are my main 2 people. Anything on the track wise, I'll call Chris Best. Just it's I don't know, man. I talk to so many people. I call people all the time. I text people, and it's not just X's and O's anymore with me. It's hey man, how y'all doing? How the family doing? It's gotten to the point where we've gotten past track with some of these people. These are actually genuinely people that I care about and care about their families. So, it's been a blessing these last 12, 13 years.
Speaking of family, you've mentioned your wife and a couple of the kids in passing through here. It seems like you have an amazing support system with your family.
We are a track family. My wife was a track athlete growing up, and all 4 of my kids run. My oldest is a freshman with me at Benedictine. For some strange reason, she decided she wanted to be a multi kid, so she's a multi. She ran multis in youth level, and she said, "Hey, I want to do the multis in college." Have at it, baby. And then my 5-year-old runs, my now 10-year-old, she just today's her actual birthday, so she turned 10 today. And then my 11-year-old son, they all run. And so yeah, they've my 11-year-old son, when I was coaching high school track, he's been to the state meet every year since he's born. So he's been to the state meet, I want to say 10 years in a row. My wife typically comes down. They typically come to meets. So we're a track family. It works out because I spend so much time, when I was a high school coach, I spent so much time on the road between high school meets and club meets. And it always worked out because the family was there, because they all ran as well. But yeah, my wife definitely supports what I do. I could not do what I do and the amount of time I spend with it without her being okay with it.
How do you, as a self-described track family, do you ever have fears? So, your full-time job is coaching track. She was a track athlete. All the kids are running tracks. You're doing club and high school recruiting and college. And I'll have to assume that anytime track is on TV, you're watching the Prefontaine, the Olympic trials, Olympics, etc. Do you ever have any concerns? And if you don't, what are you doing to divert it, to get away from just burnout? That track on your head 24/7 is not necessarily a healthy thing. What other activities and hobbies do you guys do?
So for us with the kids, we don't talk track at home.
Okay.
Like everybody asks, because my kids are really, really good. It is what it is. My 5-year-old is a sub 11 second 60 meter runner. He's a sub 30. He's a sub, what is it? He went 37 in the 200 over the weekend. He's 5. My 11-year-old son is 102 in the 4, and he went 851 in the 60 over the weekend. And then my 10-year-old daughter is 11-foot long jumper. People always want to know, what are you doing with them? Nothing. Like when we leave track practice, that's it. Yeah. We don't talk track. Matter of fact, my 11-year-old son and my 5-year-old son don't even watch it on TV. My 10-year-old, she'll watch it on TV because she just loves long jump. She'll watch it. But we don't talk track. We don't do the extra stuff at home. I'm real, because I've taken the level 2 youth certification and things and really studied the youth part, because I was coaching youth. I'm really big on letting kids be kids once they get done with their season. Like, we'll wrap up indoor season next weekend, and my kids won't do anything with track until my middle schooler, he'll start middle school track in March. The other 2 won't do anything with track until they go summer season in the middle of May. My daughter plays lacrosse. My 5-year-old is getting ready to start karate. So we keep them in other things. Yeah. But I'm coach at practice. When I get in the car, I'm dad. We're not even talking track. Like we rarely, like we'll debrief their meets. And then after that, go be a kid, go play Oculus, go play Xbox, leave me alone. As far as me to avoid burnout, I'm a movie person. Pre-pandemic, I'd go sit at the movies on the weekend. Like on a Sunday, I'll go after church, I'll go sit at the movies like the rest of the day. I'll go watch 2 or 3 movies. Now that I'm home and everything's on TV, I think we have every movie in the streaming service you can have. Paramount, Net, all of it. I just sit and watch movies. So like I'm a really bad binge watcher. So like I binge watch TV shows, and like if I really like the show, I'll binge watch it again. So it's like, yeah, I'll lock myself in the loft and I'll just watch TV.
What are you binging right now?
I am binging Shooter right now. I am rewatching the TV show Shooter. The movie Shooter with I don't remember who the star of the movie was, but they had a TV show that came on USA. So I'm binge watching that right now. So I think I'm in season 2 of that. So
and what's your all-time favorite movie?
All-time favorite. Oh my God. All-time favorite movie. I don't know. I'm a comedy person. So probably Harlem Nights. It's probably like one of my favorite movies all time. Life. I like comedies and action movies. So anything comedy, anything action, I'll probably watch it. If my wife wants to watch something, it's probably some type of romantic comedy that I probably fall asleep on. But yeah, I'm an action and comedy. But that's my downtime. I've learned.
Are you at the house right now?
Yes, I am.
So if you're watching on YouTube, when he just said, if my wife was watching something, it's probably some rom-com that I'm falling asleep. He turned his head. She must be around, or Chloe, you're like,
no, I'm downstairs and she's upstairs. She's probably still asleep. She doesn't have classes, so she's probably still asleep.
You kind of did that
coming down the steps.
Yeah, so you kind of did that look like I didn't get caught. Okay, good. No, I'm good. Yeah. You know she's gonna listen to this, so
I'll make sure I'm talking over that part of this.
You're like, let's just pass this part. Mike was saying some stupid, I don't know, just pass.
Just fast forward that.
So let's talk about Benedictine University. You mentioned at the top of the show, you're the women's head track coach, which means there's a men's head coach. And you kind of alluded, is there a head cross country coach?
Yes. So when the last coach left Benedictine, the university, they wanted to build a stronger women's program. And so the best way they felt that was to split the programs up.
So it was a combined program.
It was a combined program, and they split it.
And that's the opposite of the direction most track programs are running. They're going from split programs to combined programs. Interesting.
Yes, and so my technical official title is I am the women's head track and field coach, and I am the men's assistant sprints and hurdles coach. Okay. Because I coach all of the men and women hurdlers, long sprinters, and then I coach the women's short sprinters, and Coach Gabe, who is the men's head coach, coaches the men's short sprinters and all of the jumpers, long, triple, and high, and I coach the pole vaulters.
Give me Gabe's last name.
Gabe Rivera.
Yeah, so he came from out in California.
Yes, he's originally from Illinois. He was at UIC for a while, and he went to California, and he came back home. Yep.
Gabe was instrumental in us getting, of course, now I'm brain farting here, the longtime USC head coach that we had on the podcast. I'm embarrassed that I cannot think of his name. Long time. I mean, he was there forever. Was Long Beach community college coach, Long Beach State, and then long time, highly successful head coach at USC, and that I can't think of his name, and I'm embarrassed. But Gabe came highly recommended for him and for others. So that's awesome. So how do you is Gabe head men's track coach and director, or is there a director, or
there's not a director? It's 3 separate head coaches. So we basically run our own programs.
Okay, so how? And what I mean by that's where I was going to go with this is, so how do you make decisions on the training? Seems like the easy part because y'all have your assigned event areas. That seems like the super easy part. You coach your jumpers this way, I coach my sprinters this way. We move on. How do you decide on where are we going for track meets, where we're staying, how we're traveling, things like that?
This is how it works. We both have separate budgets. There's a men's budget, there's a women's budget. But because the women's team was so small and the guys' team was larger, we just traveled together because it was cheaper. Now, as we grow and I ended up getting more women in the program, we may end up splitting off, going to different meets at some point in time. Right now, it's I typically, Gabe takes care of the buses and talks to those people. I take care of all hotels and any other travel stuff. And then we'll kind of, if he takes care of lunch, I'll take care of breakfast or dinner or something like that. So him and I work really well together. It works perfectly for us. Right now, it works really well because, like I said, my team is so small that we could all sit on one bus together. But hopefully next season, when we're at around 40 to 45 young ladies, that won't be the case. And so it might become a little bit more difficult. We might end up going to different meets. I don't know. But right now, it works out perfectly because of the size of the program.
I had to look it up because I was very embarrassed. Ron Alice, long time USC coach, had an amazing career there. He was on the podcast. You got to go listen to it. It was amazing.
Absolutely.
He almost beat Lamont's record for length, actually. I mean, his career was so outstanding, and I was just so humbled he would spend that much time with us. Ron Adams is
I want to say, did Lamont run for him? I think Lamont might have ran for him.
No, because you know what? Maybe because of the LBCC, because the community college. Yeah.
The community college,
possibly. You know, it would take me a couple of days to go through Lamont's podcast to figure that out. So we'll just say yes, because Lamont's been everywhere.
Exactly. He'll correct both of us if it's not. I'm sure.
You know he is right now on his Twitter. You sons of
yeah,
you guys calling me out. I know where you're at, man. It's all good, baby. I love you. So yeah, how does that? I mean, as you start to plan future, and sometimes that's hard, especially in COVID times, right? Like you're talking about we don't even have practice right now because of things that are going on. How do you guys start planning together of what that how that might look like? Because you are 100% coach. You are going to have a bigger and better squad.
Yeah.
So if you start splitting, well, then who coaches the male hurdlers when you're not at the meet, things like that?
And that's the thing that's the reason why we probably won't, as much as I may want to sometimes, we probably won't. The good part about it is he and I are both have similar mindsets about where we want to run at, right? We know the first couple of weekends of outdoor season, we want to get south or we want to go to the West Coast. We know that. So that, we have that same idea of not wanting to run in the cold those first couple of weekends of outdoor season. And so that would be, because indoor season, we don't have many choices being a D3 school. Right. So we can't go to the West Coast to run the indoor season, just don't have the budget. So most of our indoor meets will be in Michigan, will be in Wisconsin. So outdoors will be the only place where we might split up. But because I'm so anal about my hurdlers and my long sprinters doing anything without me, it'd be hard for me to say, okay, let's book this meet and I go over here and you go over there.
Right.
It's like I feel I have to be there in warm-ups, in practice, and at meets for my hurdlers and my long sprinters, or something's not going to go right. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's just how I am. And so it'll be very hard for us to split. Like I said, it's great that he and I get along so well, because, like I said, it kind of just happened where we basically split up roles of who's doing what in this process, and it was never a sit down where it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this, you do that. We just kind of both started taking on roles, and like, he's been a college head coach longer than me, so he's familiar with most of the paperwork. So I'm like, hey, have at it. I'll take care of travel. You want to take care of paperwork with people in the office? Knock yourself out. I'll watch you.
if you ever get in conflict where it's like, he wants to go to this meet, or you want to go to that meet, or I want to stay in this hotel, he wants to stay in the hotel, rock, paper, scissors, one time, winner takes all. We can move on. That way you're not wasting time on decisions that really don't matter in the long game.
I'm gonna just challenge him to a hurdle race.
Oh, okay.
He's a short sprinter. I'm gonna just challenge him to a hurdle race.
In today's Instagram Live and Twitter Live, please make sure that
there's a Twitter video of me out doing hurdles when I was at HF. Yeah, I can still hurdle a little bit.
All right, everybody go Google that right now. We've got to find that. Coach, as we start wrapping up today, you said something earlier that I wanted to make sure we touched on, this is all selfish reasons for me. You said you're a reader or audiobook guy. That's all reading to me. What are you reading or have read that we should be reading right now?
So I came into this year, I had a goal of, I'm going to try to do a book a week, audio book a week. And so I put out on Twitter, I asked people to send me,
that's right.
Send me books, things. And so the first book of the year that I read was Shoe Dog, the Phil Knight book.
Oh, that was good.
It's a really good book. Like I'm a huge Nike person, right? So to hear that story, it worked out. So that's what I'm doing now. The one I started last night was Atomic Habit.
Yeah, another good one.
And so my goal is I have about an hour and 30 minute commute to and from work every day. And so most of the time I don't like today's music for the most part, so I don't listen to it. Normally I'm either listening to gospel or I'm riding in silence. And so I said, let me fill that time. And so,
or listening to the Gil podcast. He forgot to put that in there. Sorry.
No, you guys are normally on in my office. Like you guys are screenshotted on my desktop. Seriously. And I listen. That's what I do in the office because I don't have any other work to do. So I'm just sitting in the office and listening to podcasts. Like seriously, I most days the podcast is on or somebody's podcast is on in my office. Seriously. And so I got the idea. I want to be a better person this year. Forget necessarily being a better coach. I think that's going to happen if I keep working.
Yep.
But let's open my mind and let's do something that I haven't done ever. I don't think in my entire life I've read 52 books. Just being honest. And I was like, at 41 years old, there's a lot of good knowledge out there that I'm missing. Because like when I took Sean Venable was my level 2 coach for both sprints and hurdles and jumps, and he gave us tons of books, right? And so I have to go back and find the list, but I'm gonna work my way through that list as well. But right now I'm on Atomic Habit, and the goal is to read the book, listen to the book. When I get done, give a small review on my Twitter page, give it a rating. And kind of that's a way for me to hold myself accountable to doing the book thing, because I don't know, man. It's like that's an hour and a half every day that I'm doing absolutely nothing productive but driving home.
Well, I think your goal of becoming a better person is going to absolutely make you a better coach, because you're a person before you're a coach. So I love that you're diving into books on the, I'm going to say self-improvement side because of Atomic Habits, but Shoe Dog is definitely not a self-improvement. That's just a fun read and an educational sense of how someone started a business and went through the troubles and tribulations that Phil did through that book. And definitely you're getting his side of it. So there's probably some things missing, but I agree that was actually the book that I was reading right as pendant. I was at the NCAA Division I championships that got blocked because of COVID. That was the book I was reading. So it always is in my head, but I love that you're reading those type of books, focusing on those and listening to those books, and not necessarily the next coaching book that comes out, which they're all awesome. And they would certainly help you become a better coach. But these the Atomic Habits and maybe I'd recommend Lead Like a Pro that we just had the author on the podcast.
Yeah, I think somebody gave me that one too. I have a list somewhere that I got to find, but so I had people give me some options on Facebook. I mean on Twitter, and so I wrote them down, and I'm definitely going to be going through those books. And the other, you said Lead Like a Pro. I'm writing it down.
Lead Like a Pro. We had Dr. Matthew Raidbard on the podcast to start season 3. So just a few weeks ago. And then another one, and a guy that we had on the podcast, Lead for God's Sake.
Lead for God's Sake. Okay, I'm writing that one down too.
Todd Gongwer was actually the keynote speaker at USTF CCCA a few years ago. And he's written a book called Lead for God's Sake. Those 2 books, highly recommend. And we've had both authors on the podcast. You could actually listen to the podcast and kind of understand the book before you read it and listen to it.
I'm gonna have to go check those out. So I got both of those down. Those will be in rotation. That, like I said, and by the way, people, I'm still taking nominations for books. So I'm not at 52 yet. So
okay, well, let's blow Coach Johnson out here. Tell us your Twitter handle.
I mean, I'm looking for it right now.
Oh my goodness! It's probably an unknown number of Z's in there.
No, it is not. It is very simple. It is Coach Z and the letter J. So 1 Z, 1 J.
That is how you should have done the podcast. Thank you.
That is it.
All right. At Coach ZJ. That's pretty easy, right? Zontavious Johnson. Come on. We can remember that. Coach ZJ. I want you to right now open up Twitter and blow his mind. Give him your top 3, because he's got 52.
I got to feel 52.
But he needs to be able to have choices here on those 52. So he doesn't need just 52 recommendations. He needs 520, and he picks the 10 best ones, or 10% best ones. So Coach ZJ on Twitter, go tell him right now what your top 3 book recommendations are, so he can fill this up, because he's got a goal, and goals are important. We want to help with goals.
I got to hit this goal. And my goal is to, once I read it, like I said, I'll rate the book, and then I'll give my kind of review of the book on Twitter, and go from there. Like I said, for me, that holds me accountable, because now people are expecting me to do it. So.
And it brings more value to the world, right? So instead of just saying, yeah, this book I recommend because I listened to it for week 16, you're actually going to say, well, here's what I actually liked or didn't like of the book. And so now someone else decides to pick it up and read it, and they get better. So it's an exponential thing. It's something how we make good happen in the world, not just what we're doing, but with what we're doing out to the world.
Absolutely.
Dude, this was awesome, man. I'm so I didn't know we'd get a bunch of book recommendations going in, but we're going to have it right now. I can't wait for people to give them your book recommendations. I love your journey in this great profession, man. I love that it seemed pretty early in life you were going to be a coach, but you didn't even know. And that's what I love, that, you know, to see your path moving forward, and still so early in your path. This is year 3 for college coaching.
This is year 3 for college coaching. My wife tells everybody that we know that she doesn't. They always ask about retirement. Like, I don't know why. I have a bunch of 40-year-old friends that ask about retirement. My wife always tells them, he probably not going to retire. And I tell her all the time, I don't retire from what? I'm coaching. There's nothing to retire from for me. This is fun. This is why I coach youth kids. This is why I have club track as well. This is genuinely fun for me. Like, this is my happy place. Like, track is coaching kids and coaching, you know, college. This is my happy place. It keeps me going. It keeps me young. And I don't know, I don't see a finish line anytime soon. Now my wife down the line might have other plans, but as of today, 2022, I don't see a finish line. So, you know, it's been amazing, man. And I think I've been truly blessed to be in a position to affect so many young lives, and now getting a chance to affect some young adult lives. I don't take that journey for credit at all. I mean, I don't take this journey for granted at all. And I know it's just beginning, but I will say this, I will continue to bug coaches and continue to call coaches, because there are things professionally that I do want to accomplish in this sport. And, you know, outside of just recruiting kids and building a coaching resume, I want to be successful. I want to be, when it's all said and done, I want to be one of those coaches that get a chance to walk across that stage at the convention, at the Hall of Fame at the end of the day. That's just, if I'm going to do this, I want to be one of the best to do it. That's how I felt when I played football, when I coached football. And I just brought that same football mentality over to be, if I'm going to do it, let's do it and be good at it. Let's not be mediocre. And so I would challenge anybody that's getting into coaching, especially young coaches, find people that have done this thing, get up under them, ask questions, ask the whys, and get into coaching education. Even if you don't understand it at first, I promise you stay in this sport long enough, it will start to make sense. Because you will get an athlete that will make it make sense, because you're like, oh, that's what they meant by do this, do that, because this athlete can do it. I had plenty of high school kids that couldn't do some of the things that I was being taught in the beginning. But as we got going, I would get kids that could. Like, when I got to North London, we didn't have kids that could run 6.200s. They just physically couldn't do it because they didn't think it was possible, because they never had to do it. But by the time I left, they were able to go 3 times 200 meters on 3 minutes rest, and thought it was a normal practice, right? And so it's just learn as much as you can, ask the why, and enjoy it, and continue to be, you know, positive lights for the young people, because that's what we're supposed to be outside of coaching. Like, be that difference maker, be that change.
Well, that's drop the mic stuff right there. That's super wise words. Make sure you stay educated, and make sure you know your why, what you're doing, why you're doing it on a daily basis. Because that's what leads to 30, 40, 50, 60-year long careers. If you're in it for anything else, the careers get cut short. And, you know, Zontavious, we're just super excited to watch your career. You talk about walking across the stage one day at the convention. I can't wait to check back in with you in 5, 10. It might even take 5 years, boss, but I can't wait to check in with you one day and be like, hey man, remember when you wanted to do that? Well, there you are, you're up there. Cause there's no doubts of what you're doing, where you're going, and why you're doing it. And I'm just so thankful that you would share with us today your why, man. It was so awesome.
Man, I'm glad you invited me on, man. It's been fun, and I look forward to hearing it, and, you know, seeing the reactions of some people, because I know a lot of people don't know that I was like all in with football. It was, and I told them I didn't start track until 2010. And I didn't get serious about track until 2012. Mm-hmm. So, you know, but now that I'm all in with it, y'all stuck with me.
Awesome. Well, check out the show notes. We've got his podcast, which isn't active, but it's still out there, and he's had amazing guests. We're going to have that down in the show notes, and hit him up on Twitter, Coach ZJ, only one Z. We just know it. It's that easy. Coach ZJ on Twitter. Give him a book recommendation or 3, and check it out on Twitter. Zontavious, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
All right, you too.